Thank you. That was really nice, Jamie. I should just say I'm Bill Haslam. I approve that message. You all have a really good afternoon. I actually did get a little nervous when she was about halfway through that. I thought, that is really nice. I hope it ends by saying, and I want to introduce Bill Haslam, because it sounded so nice. And I was in Dunlap. Anybody here from Dunlap? Anybody from the Sequatchie Valley at all? I don't see any hands. Okay, well, I was in Dunlap about 2 weeks ago speaking at something, and this guy, before I spoke, he said, man, you're like the best governor we have ever had. He said, I can't believe this. And so he said, I can't believe I'm getting to meet you. You're just the best governor ever. And I went up and gave my speech. When he came back down, he said, I really do think you're the best governor ever. Can I have my picture made with you? And he stopped, and I said, sure. So we were getting ready. He said, hold on a minute. He said, let me get my son. He says, come on over here. And he said, his son comes over there, and we're posing. He said, son, I want you to meet Phil Bredesen. So I was a little worried what name was going to come out there. Anyway, I just said, nice to meet you. Hey, I am here to thank you all. You don't have to be here. And the fact that you want to be here is amazing. I do like to read. I do like all the things that Jamie was talking about. And mainly I like to understand people who have walked into hard situations and done really well. One of my heroes, if you will, is a guy named Alan Mulally. Alan was the CEO of Ford Motor Company. Remember back when all the things happened with all the car companies, and the federal government had to bail out GM and Chrysler, but they didn't with Ford. And Mulally had come in. He had been the CEO at Boeing Airlines, and Ford recruited him. Bill Ford himself, who was out of the Ford family, recruited him to come there and talked him into coming, even though they were facing an $18 billion loss. And so he came, and as you know, they had, or as you imagine, they had a press conference, and the media surrounding him, asking him all these questions. And finally, this guy goes, do you know anything about cars at all? He said, well, no, I've been building airplanes all my life. And he said, well, do you know this company is facing like an $18 billion loss? He said, yeah, I understand that. And he said, by the way, we met our projection. That year we had projected to lose $18 billion. We hit it right on target. But the media guy's saying, the newspaper writer's saying, I mean, do you know, I mean, this is an American icon that's about to go under. And do you know, I mean, are you qualified to do this? And finally the guy said, you know, there are 3,870 different parts in a car. And you're somebody who's never, ever dealt with that, and you're coming in to be to take over. And he looked at him and said, you know, there's 4 million pieces, parts in an airplane, and most of them have managed to stay in the air. So I think I'll be okay on this. And the next day, the Detroit newspaper ran a headline that said, I think we got the right guy. But Alan is a guy who says something frequently. He says, there is no limit. They said, armed with humility, there's no limit to what a leader can learn from anyone. And I love that idea of being willing to go and get better. One of the things I like to say is that everybody wins when a leader gets better. And whether you're a teacher, administrator, school board member, if you're willing to be here on a Friday afternoon and a Saturday to get better, then we're going to win. There's a lot of debate going on in education circles right now, as you know. And are you on the pro-reform side, or are you, pro-charters or pro-vouchers, or how do you feel about testing? And, I know how I feel about all those issues. But here's what I feel way beyond any of that, okay? Way beyond any of that. If we have people like you who truly want to get better at what you do, then we will be the best state in the country for education. We can talk about everything we want to talk about with assessments and evaluations and what we're going to do with new standards and all that. But you can take all that, and like I said, I have strong opinions about all of them, but push it out of the way. If we have people who truly want to get better, we will. And the fact that we're in a room full of people who want to do that is incredibly encouraging to me. These are encouraging times in Tennessee right now. You all know the statistic because I talk about every chance I get that we're the fastest improving state still in the country for education results. But here's why we focused on that so much, and here's why it's so important what you all are doing. I have both the blessing and curse of flying at 30,000 feet, okay? As governor, people think that you know way more than you do. Okay, that's my little secret there. But because we do so many different things at the state, we deal with mental health issues, and we deal with prisons, and we deal with kindergarten, and we deal with PhD students, and we deal with families that want to adopt children, and we deal with the potentials of Zika virus hitting Tennessee. And I can go on and on with all different things. As governor, you don't have time to know in depth the detail that you would like to know. You just don't. And so you try to learn as much as you can, but you still realize you can't know the depth. But what you do have to know is, here's what I believe to be true, and here's what I think that I can do about it from my position. And what I know to be true about education is this. In the future, a lot more Tennesseans are going to have a degree or certificate beyond high school than we have traditionally had. Hopefully you've heard about our Drive to 55, an effort to make sure 55% of our population had a degree or certificate by the year 2025. And we didn't just make that number up. Of the jobs that will exist in 2025, just 9 years from now, 55% of them will require a degree or certificate. And so getting there is critical. And there are a lot of pieces of that. One of those was making certain we could address the access issue. It's why we introduced the Tennessee Promise. We knew that if we said free, that would get a lot of people's attention. And when we introduced the Tennessee Promise and said, graduate from high school, 2 years free community college or technical school, we could get a lot of people's attention, and it did. We now, for the last 2 years, have led the nation in FAFSA application, the application you have to fill out to get federal financial aid to go to college. Tennessee has led the nation in that. We know that a lot higher percentage of our high school seniors last year and this year are continuing on to school than they did before. We also know, actually, of that first year's cohort of students who are finishing their first year Tennessee Promise, that more of those students came back for the second semester of community college than our traditional community college students did, about 81%, which is above the average we had been. So we know we're making progress, and we know a lot of those students will go on either to move on into the academic world or to move on into their occupation. But we also know this. We had to make certain that if those students are going to keep going to school, they have to be prepared. And that's why I'm so thrilled with the work that's happening in K-12 and why it matters. Before, if all you really cared about was walking across a stage like this to get your diploma, then you really thought, I'm going to do the minimum I need to where I get my diploma, and as soon as that guy hands it to me, I'm done. So if I have to pass algebra, I'll pass algebra just so I can graduate. But I'm not really doing that to be prepared for the next thing. But as more and more Tennesseans realize, I've got a future beyond high school, I need to be listening and being better prepared, then everything is mattering more. And in the past, when of the students who went on to our community colleges in Tennessee, 70% of them needed remedial work when they got there, all of us knew that wasn't going to work. And so in Tennessee, we've gone on this massive effort to raise expectations. I fully understand that has not been an easy process. We've made our share of mistakes from the state's end. I'll own those. But I'm encouraged that through all of that, there is real progress being made, and the data shows that. The data shows that Tennessee students are, like I said, improving faster than anyone else. Our students are arriving at community college better prepared, and at four-year schools and at technical schools better prepared than they did several years ago. And it's all, at the end of the day, because of work that you're doing. Here's our pledge to you is, as we continue to have discussions about how do we make certain that we have the right assessments. And again, obviously last year wasn't a stellar year for us from the state standpoint, but we're pledged to fixing that. As we continue to have discussions about making certain we have the right evaluations, that we're going to be listening to teachers. I see some folks in here that are part of our teachers cabinet that meets with us every quarter, just to listen to what teachers tell us about, here's what it looks like from where I'm sitting. And we pledged you that education will continue to have a growing share of the state budget in Tennessee. Last year, we had the largest increase to public education in the state's history without a tax increase. Last year, we set aside $105 million new dollars for teacher salaries. Last year, we committed to paying the 12th month of insurance for teachers that hadn't been paid before. The good news is that Tennessee is in better financial condition than we've been in a long time. Due to a lot of people's hard work, revenues are above projections. state, the folks who work for the state, the 40,000 state employees have controlled expenses to where at the end of this year, we're going to be, we're going to end the year 700 million plus above what the projections were. A lot of people think, well, that sounds like bad news to me. I think it sounds like good news. I think when you have a state, unlike some of our neighboring states that are ending up in shortfalls, where we can finish the year and then say thoughtfully, what's the right place to invest? And last year, we invested the majority of our new dollars in education, both K-12 and higher education, and it's our hope to continue to do that. Since we've been in office, we've cut about $550 million of ongoing expenses out of state government. And when you do that, people get really upset. I've learned that everybody says that they want you to run government like a business until you do it, and then they don't like it so much anymore. But we did that not to try to be these ruthless cost-cutting people. We did it because you shouldn't run state government the same way that you did 20 years ago, because the world has changed. And we know that in Tennessee, traditionally, and historically, we have underfunded public education. And we have a commitment to not do that. It's just too important. We're doing all that. We want more people to go to school. We want to make certain that our students are prepared for higher education when they get out, because we believe several things. Number one, we believe citizens are just better when they've learned to love learning. And you all are in the process of teaching people to be lifelong learners, and I'm so grateful for that. So number one, it just makes for a better citizenry. Number two, we know the data tells us all sorts of things about a better educated population. And we know that they have better health habits. We know they go to prison less frequently. We know they live longer. We know they participate more in society. So there's all sorts of reasons. And then the final reason is one that says we know that students who go on to complete high school and complete degrees actually earn a lot more money. If we get to that 55%, I think the total amount of increased earning power per year, every year in Tennessee, would be about $11 billion in new earning power in the state. So if you took everybody, what an average high school graduate earns versus somebody with a degree or certificate, and made up that and did the multiplication to be from where we are now, which is about 38% to all the way to 55%, we have about $11 billion in annual earnings increase, okay? There's nothing we can do in the state that will improve the economy and the condition of our state as much as doing that. So that's the big picture of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do that, and why we're so grateful for folks like you who are doing this. We love our partnership with SCORE. They've been, since day one, they've been helping as we think about how do we help our students to where more of them have the kind of opportunity we'd like to do. I want to end kind of where I started by thanking you. I'm just firmly believe this idea that when leaders, whether it be a governor or a teacher or a principal or a hospital administrator, whoever, when leaders get better, everybody wins. I just am committed to that. When I was at one of our schools about a year ago, and I was touring the school, and somehow you always end up in elementary school, you always end up in a kindergarten or first grade class first. And you always end up, if you're the governor, sitting at one of those tables that, where your knees come up above your ears. And you're sitting there because there's typically some media people following you around. You're trying not to look too silly sitting there. But I sat down, and there was a group that was kind of in their reading circle. And I sat down next to this little girl and said, "So, what are you doing?" And she looked at me like I was the stupidest guy in the world and said, "Getting ready for college." I'm like, I got it. But great leaders, like I said, they're armed with humility, can learn from anyone. And I kind of had one of those aha moments, like, okay, that's me that's always out there preaching it. But it's a reminder that in that reading circle for those 6-year-olds or 5-year-olds, I can't remember what grade I was in, for those 6-year-olds, for that reading circle, they were beginning the process of being ready for college. So we're incredibly grateful for your help and for your partnership. We are committed to doing our part. Like I said, we haven't, while we've made great progress, there's things that I think we could have made even more progress, but we're committed to continuing to learn and continuing to be great partners to you all. So thank you. Let me just say one last thing. I told you how governors don't really know as much as people give us credit for. The other point I'd make is this. What we do get is we get the benefit of seeing the whole picture. And you sometimes might not get the benefit of that. You're sweating through trying to make certain your school runs or your classroom is performing up to their capacity. What I see is the benefit of having a workforce that's much better prepared. Today in Tennessee, more people have a job than have ever had a job. Today in Tennessee, there's more demand for companies wanting to come to Tennessee than we've ever had. It's as much as I'd like to tell you, it's because we have a winsome governor and everybody is just magnetically drawn to Tennessee. That's not it. What is happening is that people are realizing that we have a workforce that really is prepared to take on the challenges. And it's because folks like you are laboring every day. I get to see the big picture. I get to see the end result of where people who before never ever thought about Tennessee now go, maybe we'll build in Tennessee, or maybe we'll move to Tennessee, or maybe we'll grow here instead of growing somewhere else. So I get to see the benefit. So on behalf of over 6.6 million Tennesseans, thank you. The work you're doing matters. And it really is changing what Tennessee will look like in 10 years and 20 years and 50 years. So as somebody who has 6 grandchildren, thank you. Thanks so much.